My ex used me to fund her dream job. While I supported her fully, I vanished and reclaimed everything she ever took from me. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and for years, I genuinely believed my ex, Marissa, and I were building a stable, loving future together. I still remember the first time I saw her, standing behind the counter of that rundown retail store, exhausted but smiling at customers like she was holding her life together with sheer willpower. She told me she hated that place, that it drained her creativity, and all she ever wanted was to become a full-time photographer. I admired that dream. I admired her. And somewhere along the line, I started convincing myself that helping her succeed was part of our shared destiny. I worked overtime, picked up weekend gigs, and even moved us into a smaller, cheaper apartment so she'd have the extra space to turn our living room into her creative workspace. She'd sit cross-legged on the floor editing photos, softly humming, while I came home sweating from a double shift, and she'd smile at me like I'd just saved her world. "I'll pay you back when my career takes off," she'd say, brushing my cheek with her hand. "I promise." And I believed every word. But the first cracks started showing up quietly, almost too quietly for me to notice. She'd get random late-night messages that she never let me see, turning her screen away with this tight, uncomfortable smile. She'd leave the apartment for last-minute client shoots with people I never heard about before. And then there were the credit card charges, little things at first, then bigger, always brushed off with, "Babe, I needed it for my portfolio." I told myself she was stressed. I told myself artists were unpredictable. I told myself love meant patience. But something in her eyes had started shifting, something I couldn't name yet, something colder than I wanted to admit. And I had no idea that those tiny red flags were just the beginning of a much darker storm about to hit my life. I used to tell myself that every relationship had an imbalance somewhere, that mine just happened to be financial. But looking back, I realize how quickly that imbalance became a weight only I was carrying. I covered almost everything: rent, groceries, utilities, even small luxuries she told me were essential for inspiration. I'd come home from a 12-hour shift, still smelling like the kitchen at my second job, and she'd be sprawled on the couch editing photos with this serene look on her face, like the world was gently cradling her while I was being crushed by it. One evening, I said gently, "Hey, maybe we should talk about budgeting a little better. Just so we're both contributing." She didn't look up from her laptop. "Are you saying I'm not doing enough?" "No," I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck, I'm stretched thin." She finally looked at me, eyes glossy. "I need this time to grow. You said you believed in me. Was that a lie?" And just like that, the conversation was over, because she knew guilt shut me down faster than anger ever could. Then came the bigger purchases, a new DSLR, high-end lenses, a lighting kit she swore was the missing ingredient between her and artistic success. Every time I hesitated, she'd whisper, "Baby, this is for us. You're investing in our future." And I bought it all. Literally. The credit card bills grew. My sleep shrank. My stress skyrocketed. Meanwhile, Marissa started spending more time out networking. She'd come home smelling like rooftop bars and expensive perfume, claiming she met potential clients I never saw. There were nights she didn't come home until 2 a.m., breezing in with a casual, "Don't wait up next time, okay?" I tried to ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach, tried to convince myself she appreciated everything I was doing. But somewhere deep inside, a small, quiet voice kept whispering that something wasn't adding up. And that voice was getting louder. Marissa's big break came out of nowhere, or at least that's how it felt to me. One afternoon, she burst into our apartment with her arms full of camera gear and her voice shaking with excitement. "I got it," she yelled, spinning in the middle of the room. "I got the internship." I hugged her, genuinely happy, but a small part of me wondered why I was hearing about it for the first time after she'd already accepted it. She claimed she didn't want to jinx anything before it was official, but something about the whole thing felt off. Still, I shoved that feeling down and congratulated her like it was our victory. Her schedule changed overnight. She started waking up early, dressing nicer, and spending way more time at the studio than at home. When I'd ask how her day went, her responses grew shorter. Good. Busy. You wouldn't get it, it's a creative thing. And each time she brushed me off, I felt a tiny piece of distance settle between us, like she was closing a door I didn't realize was open. One night, she came home smelling like citrus cologne I didn't recognize. I blinked and said softly, "New perfume?" She paused, then laughed a little too loudly. "Oh my God, no, someone spilled something at the studio." But her voice didn't match her smile, and the explanation hung in the air like a lie that wasn't fully formed. I also noticed she stopped asking for my help with gear, editing, or feedback. Instead, she'd talk vaguely about new people, new opportunities, and creative collaborators who really understand her vision. Every word was meant to sound innocent, but each one felt like it pushed me further out of her world. Then came the late-night calls. She'd step into the hallway, her voice low, her silhouette tense behind the frosted glass. Yeah, tomorrow works, no, he won't be there." I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling my stomach twist as my doubts grew sharper and harder to ignore. And deep down, I sensed a truth I wasn't ready to face, one that was slowly clawing its way to the surface. The night everything shifted started out completely ordinary. Marissa had gone to bed early after saying she was emotionally drained from a long day at the studio, and I stayed up finishing paperwork for my second job. When I finally walked into the bedroom, her laptop was still open on the nightstand, screen glowing in the dark. I reached for it to close the lid, and then a notification popped up. A message. From someone I didn't know. And the preview alone made my stomach drop. "He really thinks you're committed to him?" I froze. My hand hovered above the trackpad. I knew I shouldn't look, privacy and all that, but something inside me snapped. I clicked. The chat opened to a full conversation between Marissa and her friends. My name came up over and over. "He's basically my investor," she wrote in one message. "I'll ditch him when things pick up," another one said. And then the one that made my heart actually hurt: "I'm not wasting my real future on someone like him. He's temporary." I felt the blood drain from my face. My ears rang. For a moment, I genuinely couldn't breathe. Then I saw messages to a guy, the guy she'd been taking late-night calls with. "Once I get the new lenses, we'll plan the trip," she wrote. He replied, "Is he paying for it?" And she answered with a laughing emoji and, "Of course. He always does." I scrolled further, finding screenshots of my bank statements she'd sent to her friends, bragging about how easy it was to get me to buy her career essentials. "She thinks I don't notice," I whispered into the empty room, my hands shaking. "She thinks I'm stupid." I stared at her sleeping silhouette, peacefully curled beneath the blanket, completely unaware her entire facade had shattered in front of me. And as I stood there, heart splitting apart, one truth hit me harder than anything else. This wasn't love. It had never been. And the worst part? I had no idea how much more I was about to uncover. I barely slept that night. I just lay there beside her, staring at the ceiling while replaying every message, every lie, every sacrifice I made that she turned into a joke. By morning, my chest felt tight, like something inside me was collapsing, but I forced myself to stay calm. When Marissa shuffled into the kitchen, yawning and stretching, I stood there holding her laptop, open to the thread that had gutted me. "Marissa," I said, my voice low, "we need to talk." She frowned, annoyed that I'd disrupted her sleepy morning routine. "About what?" I turned the screen toward her. "This." She blinked at it, then at me, and instead of panic, guilt, or even embarrassment, she laughed. A short, sharp, disbelieving laugh that sliced straight through me. "Oh my God," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're being dramatic again." "Dramatic?" My hands shook. You called me temporary. You said you'd ditch me. You joked about using my money. She crossed her arms like I was inconveniencing her. You knew what you signed up for. I told you I needed support until my career takes off. Why are you acting surprised? I stepped back, stunned. Support is one thing. Calling me an investor instead of your boyfriend is another. She sighed, irritated. You always twist things. I was just venting to friends. Everyone vents. Stop being so sensitive. Sensitive? My voice cracked. You were planning a trip with another guy, on my card. She shrugged. He's helping my career. You wouldn't understand. For a moment, I felt something inside me break, not loudly, not violently, but quietly, like a small, final thread snapping. You treated me like a wallet, I whispered. And, she muttered. If you're not going to be supportive, maybe you're not the partner I need. I stared at her, realizing she wasn't apologizing. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even concerned. She genuinely believed she'd done nothing wrong. And that's when another thought hit me, one that chilled me deeper than the betrayal itself. She had absolutely no idea what I was planning to do next. I spent the rest of that day in a fog, replaying every second of our confrontation, trying to process how someone could show that level of indifference toward the damage they'd caused. I kept thinking I'd walk back into the apartment after work and see her waiting, maybe angry, maybe defensive, but still there. But when I opened the door that night, the apartment was eerily quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that tells you something is wrong before you even see it. I stepped inside, and the first thing I noticed was the empty wall where her framed photos used to hang. Then the missing cushions she'd bought to make the place feel more creative. Then the cleared-out shelves. My heart started pounding as I called out, "Marissa," knowing damn well she wasn't there. I rushed into the bedroom and found the closet half empty, her clothes gone, her makeup gone, even the drawer where she kept all the accessories I bought her, empty. On the kitchen counter was a single note. I need space. Don't call me. It's better this way. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just that. I grabbed my phone and dialed her, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Blocked. I stood there shaking, whispering, she actually left. She really left. The craziest part. She didn't just leave me emotionally, she left with everything I bought her, the cameras, the lenses, the lighting kit, even the expensive tripod I'd saved months to afford. Hours later, my friend Aaron sent me a screenshot. It was Marissa at a rooftop bar, smiling in a photo next to the same guy from the messages. The caption read, "Finally free. Here's to new beginnings." My throat tightened as I stared at the picture. She didn't just use me. She replaced me before she even walked out. And as much as it shattered me, that moment became the spark that shifted something deep inside, because if she thought abandoning me would break me, she had no idea what kind of storm she'd just unleashed. The morning after she left, I woke up to an apartment that felt foreign, like I was living inside someone else's life, someone else's heartbreak. Every room echoed with the absence she created, but instead of collapsing, something inside me hardened. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness anymore. It was clarity. A cold, steady kind of clarity that whispered, if she thinks she can vanish and rebuild her life on your sacrifices, then you can vanish too, on your terms. I didn't tell anyone at first. I didn't post anything. I didn't text mutual friends. I simply stopped existing in the spaces Marissa expected me to occupy. The first step was blocking her, not just her number, but every account she'd ever used. She'd left me blocked, but I made sure it became mutual. Then I deactivated my social media, shut down every place she could monitor or interpret as desperation. Silence became my armor. I gave the landlord notice the same day. "You're moving out already?" he asked, surprised. "Yeah," I muttered, signing the papers. "Just need a fresh start." He nodded sympathetically, but I wasn't doing this for sympathy, I was erasing the version of me that she'd taken advantage of. Then I went through my bank statements. Every purchase. Every lens. Every subscription. Every business expense she charged to my card. I printed everything, hole-punched the pages, and slid them into a binder like evidence for a trial I hadn't decided to file yet. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with a meticulous kind of focus I hadn't felt in years. I also backed up her chat messages. Screenshots. Timestamps. Names. Plans she made behind my back. Her own words bragging about how easy it was to get money out of me. It was all there, undeniable, unfiltered. By the time I finished collecting everything, the sun had set and the apartment was pitch black. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to control. I wasn't chasing her. I wasn't begging. I was preparing. And the best part? Marissa had no idea that my silence wasn't heartbreak. It was the beginning of something she would never see coming. When I finally left the apartment for good, it felt like I was stepping out of a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. The place had become a graveyard of sacrifices I made for someone who never intended to stay. I found a small studio across town, nothing fancy, just a quiet space with cheap rent and 4 blank walls that didn't remind me of her. The first night there, I sat on the floor eating takeout, surrounded by boxes, and for the first time in months, I felt steady. Not healed, just steady. I threw myself into work, but this time for me. I picked up extra shifts not out of desperation, but because the money was finally mine again. No more mystery charges. No more emergency purchases. No more sinking feeling every time my phone buzzed with a payment alert. I'd check my balance at the end of each week and just sit there, exhaling like I hadn't breathed properly in years. I started therapy too. My therapist, Dr. Malik, listened quietly as I explained the layers of manipulation, the guilt trips, the emotional whiplash. "Why did it take you so long to leave?" he asked one day. I stared at the floor and whispered, "Because I thought love meant staying loyal, even when it hurt." He nodded gently. "Love doesn't require self-destruction." That sentence stuck with me. Outside therapy, I slowly built a life that had room for me. I went back to hobbies I'd abandoned, sketching, running late at night, cooking actual meals instead of grabbing whatever was cheap and fast. I even reconnected with friends who told me quietly, "We didn't want to say anything before, but we noticed she drained you." Meanwhile, through whispers and screenshots, I saw Marissa still curating her perfect online persona, carefully posed photos, vague quotes about new chapters, and filters thick enough to hide the truth. She looked happy. Untouched. Like she'd traded in one life for another without missing a beat. But every person who builds a life on lies eventually runs out of places to hide. And deep down, I knew her perfect world was about to start cracking. It started with a single message from a mutual friend, "Dude, have you seen what's happening with Marissa?" I hadn't. I'd muted her name everywhere, but curiosity pulled me in like a hook. When I finally checked, I saw the first crack in her carefully curated world. Her prestigious internship, the one she bragged about endlessly, had posted a quiet announcement about removing an intern due to integrity concerns. They didn't name her, but people talk. They always talk. And soon enough, screenshots began circulating. I received a forwarded thread where someone exposed Marissa for submitting plagiarized work during her internship. Entire photo series copied from Pinterest, lighting setup stolen from popular photographers, even captions lifted word for word. I sat there staring at the screen, stunned, not because she cheated, but because she actually thought she wouldn't get caught. "Wow," I whispered to myself. She really believed the world worked the way she manipulated people. Then came the fallout with the guy she'd left me for. One night, My friend Aaron sent me a screenshot, the guy publicly flirting with another woman in the comments of his own post. Marissa had commented something playful below it, and he replied with a cold, relax. People noticed. The internet has a way of magnifying humiliation. The comments dragged her, quietly at first, then brutally. Behind the scenes, the messages began. Not to me directly, she was still blocked, but through fake accounts. Hey, can we talk? If this is still your number, but I just want closure. I miss you. I miss what we had. I read each one silently, never responding, watching as her desperation grew between the lines. There was something almost poetic about it. She had built her life like a glass tower, shiny, fragile, and elevated on other people's efforts. But glass shatters. And every day that passed, every rumor, every leaked detail, every subtweet about fake photographers, her tower sank deeper into the cracks she tried to hide. It was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. By the time her career started circling the drain, I had already finished assembling the thick binder of receipts, screenshots, bank statements, and messages she left behind like breadcrumbs. It sat on my table like a quiet promise, one I hadn't fully decided to act on, until I received a credit card bill showing charges she'd made after she left. Charges from boutiques, bars, a hotel. She'd kept using my card, confident I wouldn't fight back. Something in me snapped. Not in anger, no. It was the clean, steady snap of resolve. I met with a lawyer named Whitaker, a calm man with a voice like sandpaper. I laid everything in front of him. He flipped through the binder slowly, nodding. She admitted to taking the equipment. In her messages, I said quietly. And unauthorized card usage continued after she left. Yes. He closed the binder and looked up. This is a slam dunk. For the first time in months, I felt the ground under me steady. Within a week, the legal notice was sent. Marissa received it directly at the studio she occasionally still visited. I didn't see the moment she opened it, but someone who worked there sent Aaron a message describing her face. She looked like she'd swallowed glass. I imagined her sitting there, reading the demand for repayment, the order to return all equipment, the screenshots of her own admissions staring back at her like a mirror she couldn't manipulate. She tried calling me, new numbers, unknown numbers, even her mother's phone. Voicemail. Voicemail. Blocked. One day, I overheard a voicemail she didn't realize my phone transcribed automatically. Please, just talk to me. We don't need lawyers. But we did. She'd made sure of that. Whitaker handled everything with stone-faced precision while I stayed silent, invisible, unreachable. Silence wasn't just my shield now, it was leverage. The case moved fast. Too fast for her to spin a narrative, too fast for her to charm her way out. Every document, every receipt, every lie she told became another nail in the coffin she built with her own hands. And as the legal pressure tightened, I realized something. For the first time, she was afraid. And she still had no idea what was coming next. The day the court order became official, it was like someone dropped a stone into the calm surface of her image, ripples spreading fast, breaking everything she tried to keep polished. She was legally required to return every piece of equipment and repay the unauthorized charges. It was a clean, emotionless judgment, but Marissa was anything but emotionless. I didn't hear from her directly, but the internet heard plenty. Because instead of quietly dealing with the consequences, she did the one thing she should have avoided, she went public. She uploaded a shaky, tearful video at 2 a.m., mascara streaked down her cheeks as she ranted into her phone. This is so unfair, she cried. He's ruining my career. He's trying to destroy me. I watched it once, expression flat. She didn't mention the stolen money. She didn't mention the messages bragging about using me. She didn't mention the fake client trips or the guy she left me for. People noticed the omissions. The comments were split at first, but then someone posted a summarized thread of her plagiarism scandal. Another leaked her rooftop bar picture with the guy who'd already ditched her. Then someone else shared a screenshot of her talking about her investor boyfriend. Piece by piece, the internet assembled her truth as neatly as I had organized my binder. Suddenly the tone shifted. This isn't being ruined, this is consequences. You did this to yourself. You used him. Own it. She tried arguing in the comments. Then deleting comments. Then disabling them entirely. But the algorithm had already picked it up. Reaction videos popped up. People dissected her lies. Brands unfollowed her. Her collaborations evaporated. The guy she'd left me for. He ghosted her completely. Someone caught him posting, "Dodged a bullet LOL." That comment alone spread like wildfire. Mutual friends who once tiptoed around the subject of our breakup started reaching out, saying, "Man, you were right to walk away." We had no idea. But I didn't respond. Not to them. Not to her. Silence was still my language. And watching her public facade crumble without me lifting a single finger. That was when I realized the final blow hadn't landed yet. When the last piece of equipment was returned, some of it scratched, some dented, all of it shoved into a cardboard box like it meant nothing, I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure. Quiet, clean, and colder than I expected. I sold everything legally, every lens, every light, every tripod she once gloated about. Watching the money hit my account was strangely anticlimactic. No rush. No vengeance high. Just a steady exhale, like I'd been underwater for years and finally surfaced. With that money, I did something I never told anyone about. I invested in myself. I bought the software, tools, and hardware I'd been putting off for years, things I'd dreamed of but always postponed because Marissa needed this more. I signed up for a course I'd been eyeing forever. I started building a small side business, nothing flashy, nothing public, just something that grew quietly in the background while I worked my normal job. And for the first time, success didn't feel like a burden I was carrying for someone else. It felt like mine. Months passed. My life became peaceful. Predictable. Healthy. I slept better. I ate better. I laughed more. I stopped feeling the phantom guilt she trained into me, the guilt of saying no, the guilt of choosing myself. I still kept everything blocked, all accounts silent, all doors closed. I wasn't punishing her anymore. I was protecting me. Then one afternoon, an email slipped through, probably sent from an account she didn't realize I hadn't blocked. Subject, please. Inside was a single paragraph. Apologies. Regrets. A confession that everything fell apart. She wrote, "I don't expect you to take me back. I just want to talk." I read it once. Then deleted it without replying.